Hi, Marty. It's so good for you to be coming back here. I have a question for you that I'd like to ask you. And I work at a clinic, it's called Total Health, and we have some people inquiring if they can get help from us. And their symptoms can range from their hair falling out. Some people call and just say they're so fatigued that they can't even get through their day. Sometimes people are calling because they have the inability to lose weight and they have body aches. And they also have mentioned that they've gone to the doctors, they've gotten their blood tests, and their doctors tell them that everything is fine and there isn't anything they can do to be helped. Sometimes the doctors do prescribe a thyroid medication for them, and they get this little bit of hope, but then their symptoms don't go away. So I guess my question for you is, do you have any insight on why this might be happening to the people, that are coming through and inquiring about how we can help people at our clinic?
Yeah, many times we do get that kind of inquiry, and it's because a lot of people just feel like they know based on the internet and looking up symptoms that their symptoms seem to be related to thyroid issues. And when their blood work comes back, I guess I'll tackle that first. The scenario where their blood work looks normal and yet they have all these symptoms. A lot of people are left to feel like, well, okay, where do I go? They feel like they're in a corner. And I'm going to cover in this podcast 3 major reasons why that could happen. One of them is probably the biggest, revealing area that people haven't really heard about yet, is inflammation on a cellular level. So what do I mean by that? Well, what we're finding more and more is that certain exposures to toxicities, things like certain chemicals, heavy metals like mercury and lead and aluminum, or products that have chemicals in them from cosmetics, pesticides. There's certain key chemicals, chlorine, fluorine, that have an affinity to disrupt thyroid function or the cells around the thyroid or the cells in general. So when these toxicities start to interfere with the outer membrane of the cell, so your cells have this fatty outer membrane that houses your cells and houses the DNA and the little power plants that produce energy from your cells. When these chemicals or toxicities have an affinity to attach onto the fatty membrane, they start to interfere with these little receptors or docking stations that are on the cell membrane that read the hormones, such as your thyroid hormone, which is T3. So when these toxins affect that cell membrane and cause inflammation on that cell membrane, these little receptors that are supposed to read your hormones, they get blunted and they can't read the hormone as effectively. Therefore, your cells can't respond to the hormone as effectively. So this is like, now you have a scenario like going to the gas station and you're pouring gas on top of the car. Maybe a little bit trickles into the gas tank, but a lot of it never enters the gas tank. And you're not going to drive real far on a situation like that before completely running out of gas. And that's exactly what's happening on a cellular level. A person's blood work may look normal when this is happening because their blood levels of the hormone, the active thyroid hormone, which is called T3, that blood level can look normal, but the cells aren't hearing it, just like the gas station scenario. And if that's the case, that means that a lot of the other hormones aren't being heard properly, like insulin, so you could become insulin resistant. If your cells don't recognize leptin, then you actually are weight loss resistant. So you could be doing a lot of good things and still not losing weight because of this, desensitized receptors that don't allow your cells to hear the hormone. So it's a vicious cycle, because if nutrition can't get into the cell as well, then the cells can't, or the nutrition can't feed the power plants that are producing energy, and then energy starts to drop, and it develops this vicious cycle. So that's one of the big reasons why the blood work could look normal, and you're still not feeling well. And the other thing is that if you're on a medication, so even if they did find that your thyroid numbers were off, and they put you on a medication, which typically is Synthroid or levothyroxine. Some people might have been even put on Armour thyroid or WP thyroid, some of the more natural thyroid hormones that actually have T3 and T4 in them. But again, if the cells can't read the hormone properly, you still have the same scenario. And that's why people can be on the thyroid hormone and still not be responding. If a person was put on T4, which is Synthroid or levothyroxine, and if their liver is less efficient, meaning that you can have 30% less function or efficiency of your liver, and yet your liver enzymes will look perfect, that can still greatly affect how well you're converting T4 to T3, and that's actually done in the liver. So even if your cells can hear the hormone and you're on just T4, if you're not converting it to T3 properly, that could be another reason why you're not responding as well. Or if a person isn't on thyroid hormone, but their natural, the natural production of T4 isn't getting converted, you still have the same issue. So that's the second big issue that we see as to why these things can be going on. The third one is something that you don't hear a lot about, but the body has this mechanism where when you get sick, the body will conserve energy so that you can heal better. And one of the ways it does that is the T4, so the thyroid's producing T4, and it will convert that T4 or shunt it to what's called reverse T3. And that hormone actually blocks that receptor from allowing the cell to get as much T3 in. And you might wonder, well, why would the body be designed that way, to actually block its own T3 so that you're feeling more fatigued or not getting as much thyroid hormone? Well, when you get sick, you do get tired, and that's your body's mechanism. Producing reverse T3 is a mechanism to allow you to conserve energy so that it can focus more on getting you healed through with your immune system. The problem is that stress or chronic stress can start to cause almost a mimicking effect, as if you were sick or had the flu or a cold, and it might start to cause you to convert instead of the T4 being converted just to T3, it might actually cause you to convert it to reverse T3 and actually block some of that thyroid hormone. So now you're feeling fatigued primarily because the stress that you're putting your body through is actually creating the blockage of your T3. So I know that's kind of a mouthful and a little bit confusing, but these are some reasons as to why this could be happening. One of the big reasons with thyroid medication is that 80% of thyroid conditions are actually autoimmune thyroiditis. They call that Hashimoto's. So the immune system is actually attacking the thyroid primarily this happens because there might be a toxicity or the thyroid or a chronic stress or something is creating the immune system to try to clean up toxicities or in the thyroid, and after a while the immune system, if it can't clean that up, it'll actually start to dysregulate and go after healthy tissues. So now you got the immune system working against your thyroid. So many times this isn't diagnosed, and primarily because they're going to put you on the same medication anyway, which is levothyroxine or Synthroid. Problem is that these medications do nothing to correct an autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's. You have to go much deeper and work on multiple levels of things to really deal with that. But 80% of people with thyroid issues that were actually diagnosed are autoimmune.
Wow, 80% are autoimmune. What is autoimmune, and why is this happening to everybody all of a sudden?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Autoimmune, you're hearing more and more autoimmune diseases, anything from MS to rheumatoid arthritis to lupus to Crohn's to colitis. You notice that a lot of these diseases have an itis on the end of them, which means that they're an inflammatory disease. When the immune goes after when the immune system starts to affect an organ in a negative way, it's going to create inflammation. Just like when the immune system is helping you to heal a wound, it gets red around that area because the actual process of healing and the immune system doing its job is an inflammatory process. The problem is that what we're seeing more and more is kind of twofold with this autoimmune situation. It's the exposure of toxins that can enter in, either through your food or, into the bloodstream, even from things that get on your skin, or things that you might breathe in. So when these toxins get into the body, they may, depending on where they end up. So in other words, if toxins end up in the joints, then the immune system is going to go after that, trying to, it's a foreign substance. It's going to try to clean it up. And if it can't clean that toxin up, it's going to start to dysregulate and go after the joint material itself. And now we call it rheumatoid arthritis. So it's creating inflammation. The immune system is actually trying to help you, but it can't keep up with the influx of toxicity that it's trying to clean out. If toxins are ingested or food is ingested, and a person has developed a condition called leaky gut, which basically means that things that normally, molecules of food and even toxins that might be in the food or that you somehow get into your digestive systems, the digestive tract or the intestinal wall should not allow those molecules into the bloodstream very easily. The intestinal lining is kind of like a fish net where it sieves out, just the nutrition or the nutrients from the food, and then the rest of the molecules are passed on through the digestive system and then eventually eliminated. But if that fish net, so to speak, gets inflamed or opens up and allows molecules through into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, then the immune system goes after it, with a vengeance, trying to clean it up because it's a foreign substance. And that will create a lot of inflammation, systemic inflammation in general in the body, and also can start to trigger reactions to different foods that you might not even have had sensitivities to before. Actually, it will cause a histamine reaction from the immune system trying to clean it up. But if some of these molecules, like I said, they maybe if wheat molecules or gluten molecules that shouldn't be completely entering through into the bloodstream end up, maybe attaching onto the thyroid, then the immune system's going to try to clean that up, and eventually it could end up creating a Hashimoto's, thyroiditis. If you have toxins like heavy metals that attach onto the nerve, the coating around the nerves, it's called myelin, then the immune system is going to try to clean that up, and if it can't, it's going to start to go after that myelin, and then now you call it MS or multiple sclerosis. So this is the issue with autoimmune disease, and that's basically what an autoimmune disease is and what's happening in the body.
So is there a relationship between the thyroid, autoimmune, and other autoimmune diagnosis then?
Yeah, as I had said, a lot of these autoimmune conditions can really be related to each other. It just depends on where these toxicities end up. A lot of times these things can be, I call them, it's almost like in stealth mode where things are dysregulating and getting out of balance over many years. And, autoimmune, they're called ANA, autoimmune antibodies, may not actually even show up in the blood, until it's more advanced. So you can be having inflammatory conditions going on, even things like lupus, that once they show up as immune markers, or autoimmune antibodies, you might have had, things going on for a long time and actually been symptomatic, but just not diagnosed yet. So a lot of these autoimmune conditions can be related to each other. Matter of fact, even in the medical realm, a lot of times it's known that people with MS have gut issues or leaky gut issues, and that can also lead to what we call leaky brain, because the gut lining or the intestinal lining, the mucous membrane lining, is very similar or almost identical to what's called the blood-brain barrier, which is blood vessels in the brain that protect the brain from certain toxins by not allowing toxins to pass through this barrier. But if the gut barrier is being compromised, then we know that the brain barrier is also compromised, because it's really the same tissue. And this is becoming a big issue, which we'll definitely need to talk about on another podcast, in relationship to dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as autistic type of symptoms. In fact, doctors are saying that if things don't turn around with the toxicities and how it's affecting the gut, within the next 10 years, 1 in 4 kids will be somewhere on the autism spectrum.
Wow. Well, I really look forward to hearing more about that, because that's going to really help a lot of people in the future. Marty, thank you so much for all the information on thyroid health, and why some of these people are not getting the answers from their doctors and going that route. So I really do look forward to talking more with you. Do you have any other information or any other resources that you can think of that maybe for people to go ahead and connect with you more?
Yeah, I mean, we do work with people with the issues that we've been talking about. Matter of fact, we even have some tools that are done right in office, where we can do a urine test that will show us beyond a shadow of a doubt if that cell membrane, like I talked about, is inflamed, and it's 50 times more accurate than a blood test to tell us if that's actually going on. Because then if that is, then we can start to engineer a program that might be able to reverse that and allow the cells to respond properly to the hormones. And so we work with people very often in our clinic on those lines. Usually before we even consider taking the client on, we would like to offer a free